Welcome back to Behind the Blog. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller, and we are here for the conclusion of this preseason series, and we've brought on the OG of the Sens blogging community. It's at SensChirp. You already follow him on Twitter. You're already a member. SensChirp.ca. SensChirp, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm good, but I don't know about that OG intro. Like, I guess that's meant to be a compliment, but that really just means I'm the oldest blogger out there. It's good to be here. It's an honor, I would say. Like the last time did your show, I think this is my second appearance. I felt like I was kind of doing you guys a favor. You were like these young upstarts who had this new podcast on the go, and now I'm here just to hype up my own brand, right? Like you guys are kind of a big deal these days. And it's good for me because I make just as much money off of it as I do from my own podcast, which is zero. I don't make anything. So this works out. It's good to be on the show, guys. How you doing?
Oh, man, we're fantastic. Pillsy, this guy already pumping our tires. We don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this was meant to have us invite bloggers, content creators on, and we'd be remiss if we didn't have SensChirp on here. Not because we're the big dogs and we're feeding some scraps to you or anything like that. We all want a piece of the pie here, and there's enough for everyone here. So we're excited to have you back on the show, SensChirp.
Yes, and if you haven't heard the first time Chirp joined us, I guess this is your third time, but I'm not surprised you don't remember the second one. But the first
I forgot about that.
Oh yes, yeah.
The postcast appearance.
Yeah.
The first appearance, we made you go through all your most heartbreaking moments with the Sens. It's definitely worthwhile to go check that one out on Spotify or Apple. But now we're up on YouTube, and to have a YouTube exclusive with an anonymous blogger is all-time hilarity. But you did lose your veil of anonymity. Is that the word, Pilsy?
You got it. You got it, Ross. That was it.
Yeah, that's
Word
good.
of the day. Word of the day. When you went, you were at the CTC with Aleem's Martian, with Finnegan's Ghost, or I guess he's changed that, Sleeping Baker, and a couple other, Kevin Lee and Margaret O'Toole. What was it like, boots on the ground, for what ended up being such an enormous day in the franchise's history?
Yeah, I gotta say, it was not how I thought the day was going to go. As an anonymous blogger, they kind of planted us right in the front row, like basically on stage with the rest of the speakers, and it was good to meet your boy Martian in real life. I would say he lived up to the hype. He had a Molson in his hand before 11 a.m. And I figured that's pretty in line with his brand there. But it was a great day, and I mean it's a good move by the organization to kind of open the gates a little bit that way and bring in some different voices. I've done that once in the past before, and it couldn't have gone much worse than it did. Like I stepped on the logo in the middle of the locker room, and Chris Neal tried to fight me, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that is a true story. I did piss off Nealer the last time they brought me in, so it was good that they brought me back, and it was a big day for the team. It was an exciting announcement, and they definitely they pulled the wool over our eyes with that one. Like we had a chance to grill Pierre Dorion for about 5 minutes. He took questions from all of us, and not one of us wannabe reporters thought to ask him about the Tim Stützle extension, which is too bad because he had the contract in his back pocket rolled up at the time. So if any one of us had thought to ask one of the real questions, I think we would have got the scoop there. But yeah, it was a good day for sure.
There was probably a media pass on the line for the season if somebody had asked that specific question. So better luck next year.
Exactly. You guys wouldn't believe this because they signed the contract. He honestly rolled it up like a piece of scrap paper and put it in his back pocket and took like a victory lap around the bar. And I'm like, that is the priciest contract in the history of the franchise, and it's just sticking out of his back pocket like scrap paper. It was a fitting end to the summer of Pierre, I would say.
It's amazing. And we should have gotten the tea leaves because we were supposed to interview Pierre Dorion at 10 a.m. and we get a message at 9:05 being like, hey, fluid day. Can we push it to 3 p.m.? But our pea brains couldn't figure it out either. So don't feel bad for not asking him.
That's good. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, right with you on the life raft. But that was awesome that it happened. And what else did you take away from that day? Because I know they brought up some of their marketing plans for this upcoming season, some of the concessions. So what else can you tell us from your experience there?
Yeah, I would say, other than Molsons that they were handing out that we took away. That was kind of one of our key takeaways. But it's just good to see that they're making an effort more than anything, and it's happening on multiple fronts. And it's the community side, it's the business side. It's kind of, there's a few parts to the rebuild, right? So like the hockey side of the operation has been going well, and obviously they got lots of good pieces in place there. But it's kind of rebuilding that connection with the community that I think is really important. And that was what jumped out at me that on that day, is that they're really focused on that they're thinking about ways to engage with fans and how to rebuild that relationship with the business community. And they're putting the effort in. And I think it was pretty clear on that day that the mood inside the organization has shifted fairly significantly, and that they're really focused on kind of rebuilding that relationship with the community.
So I'm trying to do some quick math. If Chris Neil was on the team, it couldn't have been more recently than 2017. Do you remember exactly when that first meeting was, and how was it different than this year? Yeah,
I think it was maybe 2015 that I made that grave mistake and stepped on the logo. Like, I've told this story 100 times, but it was there's press all over the locker room, and they're all trying to get their questions in, and I'm just like, I'm the new guy in there, and like, just stay the hell out of the way. Get out of Bruce's way. Get out of Ian's way. Just give them their space. Like, there's a quiet spot to stand over there. There's no crowd over there for some reason. I'm not really sure why there's an opening there, but go stand there for a bit. And then I heard from in the distance Chris Neil yelling, "Logo, logo!" I was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh
but
no!
He talked to me afterwards, and he gave me a hard time, gave me that Chris Neil death stare that we've seen on the ice, and I was like, boy, this is not going well. But he told me it was all in good fun after, as long as I handed over the $1,000 that I owed him.
if that's the fine, you got to pay it.
Yeah, exactly.
You needed it to be like in Finland with car tickets or speeding tickets. They do it as a percentage of your salary. So be like, that's $1,000 for an NHL player. Let's scale that.
But what's the percentage of what SensChirp makes on the blog and joining our podcast? So
yeah,
you'd be looking at a smaller fine there. Yeah,
it's zero. He got the $0 that I owed him. That's for sure.
So when did SensChirp start? I think we got into this a little bit the first time on, but like, how did the idea originate, and then when did you go live on the internet?
Yeah, I tried to look up some of the historical records on some of this stuff, because it's been a long time. But I think the way I see it, there are kind of like 3 pivotal moments in the making of SensChirp's story. And I think because you don't become a 30-something anonymous blogger without a few twists and turns along the way. But I think I like to think it started with an email in 2004. It actually goes all that way back. I was a painfully hungover student at Algonquin College with a deadline looming, and our assignment was to talk to someone in the business in sports journalism and get their thoughts on something. And I wrote a last minute email to Bruce Garriock, asking him a few questions, like advice for someone who wanted to get into the business. He called me back 10 minutes later. I think I was asleep because I was hungover, as I mentioned. And then I emailed him back 10 minutes later and asked him my questions. And I asked him, what is your advice to someone who wants to break into the business? And he just gave like a really simple answer. He was probably in a hurry that day, but it just said, write. And like that really stuck with me. And I think I kind of took that advice and said, like, even if you're not going to immediately find a job in the industry, that maybe there's ways to kind of start your own thing. The next pivotal moment in the SensChirp story revolves around cheap Jaeger bombs at Minglewoods. Okay. So I think a few of us were there. I think it must have been like 2005, and there were 3 of us. So one of us knew something about computers. One of us knew someone in the Senators' front office, and one of us could string together a coherent sentence. So I think we kind of put those 3 ideas together and came up with the idea of SensChirp. And then probably the next key moment is the Hossa for Heatley trade. So in 2005, when that trade came down, there wasn't Twitter in way back in these days. It was a glorious time, fellas. A Twitter-free world was a happy place. But what there was the Sportsnet message boards. Yep. So I had gone on there, created an anonymous account, and I knew about the trade a week before it actually came down. So I posted cryptic messaging in there about a trade that was coming up, and had it a week in advance, and took a beating over the course of that week as kind of like pulling stuff out of thin air and making things up. And then when it broke a week later, that it was kind of like a built-in following. And that's 2005. I don't think I've said anything since then. I think we're going on 17 years now or whatever it is. But yeah, having that original scoop was kind of the launching off point for me, and what really made me want to get into it and keep it going. And I'd like to think it's been a good run since then, but those are kind of the three moments that led to SensChirp starting in 2006, I think, was when we started it up.
That's amazing. The time I remember really starting to know who you were and follow the website was the summer. Funny enough, when Danny Heatley had requested a trade. I know you were all over the updates on that.
Right.
And every day, I mean, there were so many ups and downs and twists and turns from rejecting the trade to Edmonton and what was going to happen, and the signing bonus that was looming and everything there. So that's when I remember it. But Pillsy, why don't you tell Chirp about our breaking news? Because I feel like that's kind of funny where we had something and we got ridiculed for it, and it was just happenstance though.
Right.
Which time? We had a couple, but I think if the one you're talking about, the earlier one, is Ross had an inside source that was working at the arena, and they saw Guy Boucher leaving,
being escorted out by security.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I was gonna say, not exactly on a casual basis, but
Yeah.
he was leaving the building in an obvious way that something had happened. And
Right.
I think Ross, because
I said, don't be
Ross
surprised.
did the cryptic tweet as well.
Don't be surprised when Guy Boucher is fired this morning. And everyone's like,
Oh, man.
they just said last week he's safe. They just said it. They said, all right.
Yeah.
And then an hour and a half later, it was, who's the guy? Kyprios had it next. And so we've been living off that now for 5 years. Never talked about another man's job. But yeah, we've been living off of that for 5 years now. But no, it's great. It's not about breaking news. It's about being able to, communicate messaging to the fan base, which is something you're so great at. And tell us about the comment section on SensChirp, because I feel like that's legendary in itself. And I like how it's continued to grow, even though Twitter is sort of a message board in itself. But how do you monitor that, and how active is it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I like to think that's kind of the engine behind it now, right? Like that's the thing that keeps it going. Even when I take a week off here or there, the comment section just kind of looks after itself for the most part. I mean, it can get pretty crazy in there, but what's really cool about it, and I think why the website has kind of remained relevant, even though I haven't broken a story in 17 years, is I think the community. I think that's the biggest part, is like these people know each other. So obviously on my side, there's consistent content. It's a lot of hard work to kind of keep that thing up to date and to keep it rolling that way. But what I think keeps SensChirp going is the community that comes back. There are people in there that I would consider friends, like people that I met away from the site over the years. We did a trip to Binghamton back in the day, organized through the site. I mean, another story there. I didn't come back on that bus to Binghamton. I decided to stay.
You just love bingo so much.
I decided to stay the night. Yeah, I decided to stay the night, and I think I did shots with Casper Dogvins before the night was over. So I stand by my choice, but it is hard to get home from Binghamton on a random Sunday. As it turns out, there's not a lot of trips coming back to Ottawa, but we've done kind of events like that, and we've met people from the comment section in real life. I've seen people picking each other up in hard times, people losing family members, and kind of seeing the community like rally around people in situations like that. I've seen some really bad financial advice get thrown around in that comment section where people are posting like open questions about good investments, and someone will answer. We do sometimes talk about hockey in there, but I think that's one of the cool things about it, is it really is a community, and it covers kind of a wide range of topics. And I think there's no way SensChirp would still be a thing, especially through the pandemic and the time when there was just no hockey at all without that community keeping it going. I think recently, kind of a funny story, and I won't get too far into the details, but I had someone offer to buy the website off of me for a fairly lucrative amount, I would say. And I I thought about it and I considered it, but in the end, I decided it's not mine to sell, right? Like, I don't feel like I own the site the way I once did. And I think I can't just sell somebody's community, right? So I think that's one of the things that keeps it going is just the community that's built there, and third rate content, but mostly just a good group of people that follow along and that are fans of the team.
You heard it here first. SensChirp is priceless.
Oh.
Actually, this was just my play to get them to up their offer, but we'll see if it works.
And now you're using our platform to step it up further. All right.
I've had so many offers. If you guys are going to throw an offer and make it big, there's competing offers here, that's for sure.
Exactly.
When you talk about a community, that's obviously apparent. I'm on the website right now, senschirp.ca. Check it out if you haven't already. But
today, because everyone's checked it out. If you haven't checked it out today, they're there right now.
Well, your Stutzla Signs SensChirp Reflects has 2,168 comments under it. Yeah. So clearly, like you were saying, the comment section gets out of hand here. Now, when you first started the website back in those hungover days, what was like your goal? Like when you first said, okay, I'm going to do this, you mentioned you got together with those buddies that you each had your strengths and you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to Bruce, get some advice, get going. What was your goal at that time? Like, where did you see this going?
Yeah, I think I was mostly looking for an outlet more than anything. I had gone to school for communications and kind of had hopes and dreams of a career in sports journalism, in broadcasting. I did an on-air audition for a gig at the Score. They were doing like this weird, no, not nice, Pilsy. Hang on a second. They were doing this on-air audition for a reality show. I can't remember what the name of it was, but they were bringing in random people to do a quick audition. If you made it onto the show. And I would say my audition looked a lot like that Boom Goes the Dynamite guy. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy's clip where he just can't put a sentence together and it just gets completely derailed. But that's when I knew that the on-air thing wasn't going to work out. And I think that's kind of what I was looking for when I did SensChirp. Like, we had access to some inside information, and obviously you guys mentioned it. The thrill of breaking the odd story is part of it. I think that's part of the appeal. But it was mostly realizing that it was going to be really tough to make a run at it as a career. That the number of jobs in that line of work are limited. They're really competitive, and most of them are filled. And a lot of the jobs I had my eyes on 17 years ago are still filled by the same people. So it's like, it's really hard to break into that career. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking with the website, is like, it was an outlet. It was what Gary Ock told me. It was like, just write, keep practicing, and keep doing what you want to do. And I think that article you talked about, Pilsy, the Stutzla Signs SensChirp Reflects, was part of me realizing that, like, I wanted to do that as a career at one point, but that I had found a pretty good alternative. That I'm not going to get rich off of SensChirp, but I had found a good outlet for what I wanted to do, and to write about the team and have people read and care about what I'm writing about. And I think that's what it was. It was mostly just an outlet and a way to kind of pursue a career that turned out to be really hard to make a run at.
Without getting in the specifics, though, you are making some financial.
Well, Ross, I mean,
otherwise, I'm not smart, but I know that if you're selling something to someone, or if someone's offering you money for something, they're likely going to generate some money from something.
I mean, you may have noticed 1 or 15 ads that appear on the site regularly. I do make some money off of those. I think it's kind of the behind the scenes perks that have been some of the best parts of SensChirp, for the people I met through the site who have access to a box in Club Bell, or when Air Canada calls and says, do you want to go to Tampa Bay and cover a weekend we're doing there? It's things like that there are definitely financial benefits. Yeah.
Hey, beer money doesn't hurt though either.
Exactly. That's a good segue. I gotta open one here.
There you go. Perfect. Like, it's a bad night to be a Molson, and I assume you're going to be at the home opener.
Well, I bought 4 tickets, so I think I'm going to be there. I got my spot reserved, and I think I'm going actually to Miami for a football game that weekend before the home opener. So it's really going to be a sales pitch to my wife more than anything when I come back on the Monday and then go to the home opener on the Tuesday. But you got to be there, right? You guys have your own little thing going that night, eh?
We're gonna have
up
some
to
fun.
1,000 people?
Yeah, 980 at the time of the recording right here at 6:30 or 7:30, I guess, Eastern time. We go on Eastern time, even though I'm in Central. Pillsy had a pretty good one-punch knockout when I was like, no, like let's figure it out. He goes, what time zone does the team play in? All right, fine. I'll add an hour to everything I do for the rest of the time.
That's me avoiding math at all costs, Ross.
That's safe. Yeah, time zones are confusing. Yeah.
Well, behind the blog, what we were able to do is the Apple calendars. We both have Macs. It automatically does it. So if I plug in, it's at 5 o'clock. When I send him the invite, it goes to his time zone. So
there you go. No math for you guys. There you go.
No, not math guys on this show. But before the game, and everyone listening, of course, as well, I feel like some people, and we know SensChirp, one of my favorite things you do is when there's a big game day, you've got the letter for everyone's bosses. You're taking care of everyone, letting them know that, hey, you tell your boss that SensChirp and the Ottawa Senators are giving you the right to leave work at lunch. And I think that's what people are going to have to do at the home opener, because we're taking over Stanley's Bar and Grill at the Sensplex. $5 pint. So why not gear up into the game with that? So
all right, Ross, I'll be there. I'll see you there.
Your arm a little bit, eh? Yeah. No, so that's all going to be great. What are you looking forward to most heading into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're kind of recording this on the first day of training camp, and obviously there's been a ton of hype around the team through the offseason, and lots of really exciting things going on. But I think, honestly, guys, I felt a little bit weird coming on the show today after some of the online discussion that's been kind of playing out. And it's part of the reason why I haven't wanted to record one of my own episodes yet, because the Hockey Canada investigation really is just kind of, it's hanging over what should be a really exciting time in the lead up to the season. And I guess I just want to say at the outset, like, both of you guys have done a really good job keeping this story on the radar. I've listened to a few of your episodes recently, and even if we'd prefer to stick to hockey in situations like this, it's a story that we need to kind of keep talking about. And I'll be honest, like, after the way things played out on the first day of camp and some of the quotes we heard from the team in the last couple of days, it's weird trying to say, like, let's just stick to hockey here. And I know, like, the story itself it's uncomfortable. The investigation, it's hard to talk about, and I think it should be, right? Like, it's an awful thing that happened. And at the same time, I think a lot of people are kind of struggling with this, and this is why haven't really said a lot on the topic, is because it's almost impossible to, like, eloquently discuss the intersection between this terrible thing that happened and to an actual human being in this stupid, meaningless hobby of ours, right? Like, that intersection is hard to discuss because it doesn't exist. Like, one of those things is important, the investigation and the victim. Those are the things that matter, but the impact on our favorite hockey team is just not important. And I think that's kind of a lot of what I'm feeling in the lead up to the season, is with that hanging, and the team's taking a ton of heat for it, right? In how they're handling it. And I think it's fair. I don't really know what the alternative is. Like, I don't know what they should be doing differently. And I'm sure they're getting pretty clear legal advice on how to answer some of these questions. But what I do know pretty definitively is they should listen to what fans are telling them on this stuff. And, like, if fans care about this stuff, that's something that they should be listening to, and they should be adjusting their messaging on the topic as much as they can there. And I think, like, it's important for us to use platforms like this, like my website and your podcast, to keep talking about it, and not just about it in the context of the news that's happening, but in the issue, like the core issue, the hockey culture issue, and the issues and problems that exist there. So, like, you guys have done a great job at this, and keep giving voices to people that know about this stuff and can shine a light on the issues and can speak about it intelligently and can say important and talk about an important issue. So I'll leave it there. I mean, there's lots of really exciting things that are happening around the team, and I think we're gonna see that play out as training camp happens the next couple of weeks here. But it's that little bit of a cloud that's hanging over all of it, right? It's hard to talk about the rest of it with that part of it there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's super fair. And I liked what you said about us bringing people on, because we can denounce it and say how awful it was and how we empathize with or sympathize with the victim,
Yeah,
and like how brutal it must be for her, not only to be going through all this, but to be going through it in such a public
for
way
sure.
where there's just so much dialogue around it, and the unknown of who was even involved, other than
Yeah,
knowing that Hockey Canada has a lot to answer for and a
for
lot
sure.
to figure out. When I think like all of it's disgusting. One thing that stood out was like they had a fund for this that was with people's money that
Terrible. Or terrible.
literally uses it to for kids to play hockey and
Yeah,
women's hockey as well. Like imagine your daughter, you paid for her to go to this school, and then she becomes a victim of something that is hopefully avoidable going forward with better education and
yeah,
all of that. But yeah, I think it was important, especially Ari we had on last weekend and behind the blog, and it's just a matter of getting the right voices of people who have a path forward to getting to the other
for
side
sure.
of this dark
Exactly.
tunnel. Because yeah, like people like us, like we're dummies who just enjoy hockey, and I guess we're not affected like specifically, or at least I haven't been affected in the past. But what I do know is that educating ourselves and myself going forward to make sure that it's a better and more inclusive place for everyone, it's super important. So yeah, we're going to continue doing that, and we appreciate you bringing that up as well. Pilsy, you got any more on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the important thing is at no point are we shying away from this. We're not experts in this field, so we do what we can to kind of report the information that is publicly available and available to us to our best extent. And we try to have people on and try to include members of the community that know more about this and can speak more intelligently on it. Like you mentioned, SensChirp. So
Hmm.
that's the thing is there are definitely wrong ways to go about it, and we're trying to learn the right ways to go about it with
Right.
everyone else, right? Like I think that's what it comes down to is treating everybody with respect and trying to understand how we can move forward as a community and better this, because it's not an Ottawa Senators problem. It's not an NHL problem. It's a hockey problem, and I'll even go further. It's a society problem that
Right.
for all aspects of people in the community need to be educated on proper, appropriate responses to the sexual assaults and things that are going on, so that we all can become better together. And we want to have this platform to
Exactly.
try to do as much right and as good as we can, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, I think just jump in there, Dave. And one of the things too is like proper consent too, where it doesn't even get to the point of assault, is knowing like no means no, and all that. Like I know you have two daughters, Chirp, and maybe they're even a little young to be having these conversations. But what goes through your mind when you're thinking of down the road and having to, educate them on such a delicate issue as well?
Yeah, it's honestly, man, it's unimaginable. Thinking about them kind of growing up in that society and that environment, and I think I can't even. That's a really good question, and one that I can't even really comment on. And I think it's just really really important that we use the platforms we have to keep having these uncomfortable conversations, because that's the goal of it, right? Is that so other people's kids aren't growing up in that same environment and in that same circumstance. So I think it's keep having those uncomfortable conversations and use platforms like this to talk about it, even when we'd rather talk about the state of the blue line or what the bottom six is going to look like. But this is a story, and it's a story that matters, and we're fortunate enough to have a platform where we can talk about these things, and I think that's kind of on us, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Pills, you got
I think we've kind of covered it to the extent that I'm able to cover it, and
Mm-hmm.
of the news that's available at the time of recording, September 22nd, about 7:30 Eastern here. So I think I encourage everyone to get educated, to speak to the right people, and you know what, Twitter is a tough place sometimes. It can be very positive, it can be very negative.
Yeah.
Just treat everyone with respect, and don't go speculating, accusing, putting other people down, or anything like that.
Or as if you're on a high horse because you
Yeah.
think you know better than someone else. Try to educate them as though they're your peer.
In a
'Cause at the
respectful
end,
way. Exactly. Yep.
yeah, not being like you're an idiot, you don't know anything, or you said this one thing this one time means you're a bad person.
Right.
I think that it's super important to have respectful discussions because I mean, Chirp, I'm sure you see it in the thousands and tens of thousands of comments you get on your site where it can get heated, but at the same time, it just makes it so much more rewarding when everyone kind of leaves feeling like they learned something. Because that's kind of you go on
Yeah.
the internet and you don't want to be there to roll around in the mud. You want to be there to at least, I mean, you sometimes get like a splatter if a car, goes through a puddle of mud. You might get some on your leg, but you don't want to look like a pig in shit at the end of it and
Right.
be covered in it. You want to kind of leave almost feeling uplifted, like, hey, this is an awful situation, but like I feel like I learned something today that I can pass along to whether it's a friend, a family member, or somebody who God forbid is going through that and being on the wrong side of it, and kind of being able to empathize and sympathize with what they're going through. So yeah, educate yourself and accordingly kind of bear what you learn to other people, and as long as it's in a respectful way, I think that's going to be a huge way to move things forward in this culture.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think you talked a little bit about Twitter in there and kind of the environment on there sometimes, and I think that's kind of going back to some of the early days of SensChirp. That's part of the story there too. Is kind of that social media can be a great place to discuss things like this, or even just things related to the hockey team. But it's not always the best environment for some of this stuff, and it can get heated, and it's the same way on the website sometimes. Like I think the comment section has some of that too, but I think one of the nice things, at least about the Sens community recently, is, and I think this is kind of like you guys talk about this all the time, but in general, the vibes in general in the fan base have shifted fairly significantly, right? After a few kind of tough, this really is a fan base that's ready to be excited about the team again. And I think we saw a lot of that through the summer months and some of the big moves they made there, that there really is kind of that passionate fan base, and I think people are a little more optimistic about the team and about the brand. And I think it's just in the context of the Hockey Canada thing, it's important that they get that right, because there's some good momentum building there, right, for the team, and I think they want to kind of keep that rolling. I think the shift in tone when I'm on Twitter sometimes, and the optimistic nature of it, it can be a little staggering. I think it's terrible for my brand, first of all, right? Like, as the optimistic blogger, it's like now I just kind of get lost in the shuffle, right? Like,
yeah, we're trying to ride your coattails on that train.
Exactly.
Too.
Now I'm thinking about like a WWE style heel turn where I'll become like the negative blogger and kind of do like the Sixth Sense thing, and like we'll switch spots and we'll see how that goes over. But yeah, there's a lot of good momentum on there and a lot of good vibes around the team, and I think it would be nice to see them keep things rolling in that direction.
Yeah, and we're hoping to get some sort of conclusion to this awful storyline that does have to be continued to talk about. But when it comes to like what the Sens have built to, when we spoke to Pierre Dorion, I mean, it was apparent like they do care about who the person is when they draft, not just the hockey player. And you look at the personalities on this team, like they're so fun loving. It starts with the captain, with Brady and Timmy, like and Josh Norris and Shabbat, and like the thing is, like I would have put Drake in that mix. Like he's a quote machine. His mic'd up segments were unbelievable. So it's just like it's hard for I think fans who have seen that and grown to love this 4th round pick who's come up. And again, like the names are not out, and that's what makes this so confusing as a fan. And that's why I think a big part of what needs to be the conversation right now is the empathy for the victim,
for sure,
rather than how it affects the team and
exactly
what the player is. And I think we get too caught up in like, oh, Batherson said this, and like all the attention's on Batherson. I think the attention should be on the victim and how we help her going forward, and how we help there not to be another her with the education and with that going forward. So yeah, it really is too bad that this black cloud, because like the storylines I wish we're chatting with you about, Chirp, is
And
like,
we still can, right? Like I'm not saying we can't transition to that stuff. I just think it's like it's important to have that conversation, not ignore the topic at hand, and acknowledge what's going on there. But yeah, go ahead, Ross. Hit me with some storylines heading into camp other than that.
Well, no, what I was gonna say about that too is like you look at now my train of thoughts running out into the wilderness. I'll get back to that when I think of it. But what I was gonna bring up is like another personality on this team. Well, two guys who are aiming to crack the team, like Igor Sokolov, Angus Crookshank. Those two guys have been gracious enough with their time to come on with us a bunch of times, and you can just hear and feel the passion, and they just want to be Ottawa Senators. Like to me, that gets me so fired up, and I just hope that we can make sure that the vibes on this team and going forward and continue to be immaculate, as they'd say. But no, to get into it, like who's one player that you're singling out this year as someone who you're going to be eyes glued to them every time they're on the ice?
Yeah, I gotta say, like I wrote an article about training camp today, and it's bad for my site. It's probably bad for your podcast, but training camp it's kind of a myth. Like I don't know if there are many big battles playing out this year, right? And I think DJ Smith kind of said that himself, that a lot of the spots are locked up, and this is about getting the NHL team ready to go. So you mentioned a couple guys like Igor Sokolov and Angus Crookshank, and Crookshank especially was incredible at the rookie tournament. And like, it's clear they have something there, but it's just, I don't even think like a Brandon Bochenski style preseason from one of those two guys is going to let them force their way onto the roster, right? Like, I just think most of the spots are locked up. But in terms of who I'm watching, it's like the top six is unlike anything that they've put together in a long time. So we'll see how that clicks in the early going. I've watched a lot of the scrimmage videos, and I'm like, they look incredible. But then I'm like, shit, that's Ottawa's defense they're torching. Like, that's kind of equally concerning to see the defending on some of those plays. But I think it's got to be Jake Sanderson, right? Like, I think that's the key piece. That's where the whole, I think, like, they want to be competitive this year. I think a lot of it comes down to Jake Sanderson and how ready he is, and if he's as good as we think, and how quickly he can make that transition. I think that's what I'll be watching for. I'm also curious how Jacob Chikrin's going to fit into that blue line once he gets here. Like, I think that doesn't that feel kind of inevitable at this point, fellas? Like, I think it's a matter of time. He's begging to get out of there, and Pierre's just waiting it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if something happens there. I don't know if it's going to be before the season, but
don't put your 17 years at risk here.
I said I wouldn't be surprised. This is how the pros do it, man.
There you go. Leave a little door open.
Quite say it, and then or back end of a podcast interview that nobody will get to, and then we'll just skip that part, and we could just edit that out. But I think, the blue line's kind of the big part. It's Jake Sanderson first, and then it's seeing if Dorian can add another piece back there to help them out.
So this is revisionist history, what I'm about to do here, because they've obviously added pieces up front since. But going back to 2020 draft, third and fifth, Pilsy and I were both like, draft two forwards. Could you imagine right now with the defense they have if they didn't have Jake Sanderson coming?
Yeah, I mean, or if they had another forward they were trying to squeeze into the tops, like, right? There's
where
no
would they fit? Yeah.
Room for there's no room for any forwards, and I think I can't remember if I had the same mindset or if I was kind of I did think about a defenseman, and I know nobody was super excited about Jake Sanderson leading up to the draft, but boy, did they hit that one out of the park, right? Like, that looks like the right pick and exactly the player they need, and now it's just how quickly can he become that, because they need him to be that player in a few weeks, because a lot of that blue line kind of hinges on him being able to play 20 minutes a night.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw the quote from DJ Smith saying that he spoke with Jeff Sanderson about starting him with a veteran. And how do you think that Hamonic being that guy is?
So this is not something I would say on Twitter, right? Because then I'd take a beating for it.
No,
but
it's all good. I think I know where you're going, and I declared myself on Thursday's show officially a Travis Hamonic guy. So
there's two of us. That's good. That's good to know that there's a following building there. But I think I'm in the same mindset. Like, the analytics are what they are, and I'm well aware of them, and I know that what he was in Vancouver, and that they were pretty eager to move on. But I watched him down the stretch, and he looked like exactly what they need back there, and exactly the kind of partner I pictured Jake Sanderson is going to need as he breaks into the league. And I think when they made that trade at the time, they said some of that, right? That they pictured him as a potential partner for Jake Sanderson, and it makes sense. It's the analytics are concerning. It's the same thing with Zaitsev. I see the numbers. I know what people are worried about, but he on paper and based on what I saw from Hamonic down the stretch with Ottawa, it looks like a good fit. I'm not super worried about him, to be honest.
Yeah, now training camp is the time to get geared up, get ready for the start of the season, and we know the start of the season has not been kind to the Ottawa Senators for the past 2 years. It's been a very slow start. So I want to get your opinion, Chirp, on where you're at with DJ Smith right now, because I think he was the perfect choice to be the coach of this team while they're going through the rebuild. Be a player's coach, keep things light, but don't let the players have bad efforts. Make them kind of proud, battle hard team, spoil other teams' playoff chances, all those kinds of things. But those days are over. Now you got an amazing top six. Some of these young guys are now legitimate NHL superstars. So what's your confidence in DJ Smith being able to lead this team when there's actually meaningful games on the line, and he can't just point to my roster and be like, well, what do you want me to do?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have complete confidence, but also I completely recognize the fact that we haven't seen him under these circumstances yet, right? Like, there are lots of things I like about DJ Smith. I know the players love him, and I think that's a really important thing. I think his ability to communicate with the players has always been a strength, and I think that becomes increasingly important as these players are expected to kind of take the next step and the team's supposed to become competitive. I've seen him appear to be pretty flexible, which I think is probably the most important thing for a head coach, is like being willing to admit when you're wrong or something's not working and being willing to adjust. So I think that seems like a strength of his too, but I think we'll see as expectations get turned up a little bit, right? We'll see how he handles the heat, and that's the job. You're right. He's been under a circumstance for a while now where expectations were pretty low, and still there were times when the online community and fans were turning on him for various things. I think Zaitsev's probably the biggest complaint that fans had for a while there, but I think we'll see how he handles expectations. But that's not just DJ Smith. That's the players. That's the young core that's been locked up that now is no longer just happy to be there, right? That now that the organization has committed to this group of players, and it's up to them to kind of elevate. And I think that happens to the coach just as much as everyone else. I think the slow starts that you alluded to as that being kind of an issue. I've been thinking about that too, because the way the schedule breaks down, and they have an early homestand, their longest of the season right out of the gate. They play 5 in a row at home. So it's like they can't start slow again. Like, if they want to be playing meaningful games down the stretch, they gotta start better than they have. And I think it's a good sign that training camp started 2 weeks ago for these guys, right? Like, they've been skating together in Ottawa 2 weeks in advance. So it seems like the players get it. And yeah, I'm confident in DJ Smith, but I think this is a different environment, and the heat's definitely going to be turned up a little bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned the homestand. I'm looking at their schedule now, and when you start the season off against Buffalo, that's a team that you think you can be competitive against. Toronto Maple Leafs, that's an easy W. Exactly. Then you go the Boston Bruins, they're down and out here. Washington Capitals, that's going to be interesting. And then you got Arizona as well. The first 2 games aren't home games, but that's the first 5 games of the season there. Now, a common phrase is, show me a good goalie and I'll show you a good coach. And or is it the other way around?
No,
Okay. I always mix those.
Show me a good coach and I'll show you a good goalie.
Okay. So I got it right the first time. See, very common phrase. I know it really well.
The other day, I'm pretty sure I said bread's my butter instead of butter's my bread.
Yeah,
so it's all
you might catch on. Give it a chance.
We really those types of phrases, but I should have just been confident in myself. Anyways, where I'm getting at is a big.
Did you say draw my foot in the sand once? You got so mad about that?
No, I didn't get mad. I just thought I said it right, and then I got all mixed up. I was going along the lines of draw a line in the sand, but I was picturing drawing the line with a foot.
Guys, if you have done 600 of these things and that's the worst shit you've said, you're doing great. Like you're doing fine, guys. Don't worry.
No, I think the worst thing Pilsy's done. You think of what the worst thing I've done is when.
This is not where I wanted this question to go.
feel like I'm doing the newlywed game here or something.
Yeah, exactly. Ross and I are well out of our honeymoon phase. I can promise you that in 635 episodes later.
Sean Foisey's going to get a kick out of this because he brings it up every chance he gets. But when you compare Tim Stützle's ceiling to Derek Stepan, and then a week later the Sens traded for a 35-year-old Stepan, a little bit different.
That is a misquote right there. All I said is I could see him having consistent 50-point seasons just like Derek Stepan had.
Okay.
That's
still
all I
unpleasant,
said.
but
yeah, the irony is I thought I was finally over that, and then like Ross mentioned, they acquired Derek Stepan, and everyone was like, "Oh, Derek Stepan, Tim Stützle can learn a thing or two." Yeah, I ate that one pretty hard.
No, you're good. I've had brutal takes too, a lot of them. Chirp, wait, finish your question first. I want to go back to what
did Chirp I have a question? Like where?
It was about goalies. You were going to hit me with the goalie.
Yeah, you're teeing yourself up so well.
Yeah, show me a good goalie, and I'll show you a good coach.
Nailed it.
So DJ Smith hasn't exactly had the best options in the crease. Now I think for once he's got two stable veterans that I think on any given night can give your team a chance to win.
Yeah.
Which of those two goalies do you think is going to have the most starts come the end of the season here?
I don't care. I think that's my answer on that one.
I like that.
Right? Like I don't. Yeah. I picture a situation where they split the starts. I'm not concerned, and I think that says something about the kind of the depth they've created in the net. Like they have two guys who look pretty similar to me, who I expect will compete for starts. I don't care who plays more. Like I think they get a lot of, like, in hockey anyway, really focus on this idea of a number one, like who's your starter, who's your go-to guy. But I feel like that's maybe a little bit dated now, that you really do need two guys that can play and play well. I think that's the focus for them. They need both guys to be able to start about 40 games each. Like I picture them kind of splitting it down the middle, pretty close to that. I think Forsberg probably gets first crack at it after the way he played last year, but ultimately I think they'll need both of them going, and I don't care who starts more games.
I love that. That's such a good answer. Hey, show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good coach, and let's let the coach decide who the good goalie is.
There you go.
So you mentioned the Newlyweds game, and I had this thought the other day, and I brought it up actually in our other Behind the Blog this weekend with La Brigade, the Francophone podcast. They do great work. And do you remember before the Prime Minister's race, there was the goalie race?
Oh.
Do you remember that? I feel like I was like 8 years old, but it was full contact goalie. Like everyone would gear up in goalie. They need to bring that back. There's probably some liability issues. Just sign the waiver before you go. We need to bring that back.
I was gonna say there's got to be a reason something like that disappeared, and it's probably related to horrible injuries that took place. But I mean, not to focus on the president's race, but I always think like some of those guys must get hurt in that, right? Like you don't see it because of the costumes they're wearing, but some of those hits and wipeouts are terrible. But yeah, I'm all for it. Bring back the goalie race, and let's find a safe way to do it, obviously. But I think I'm all for it.
I like it, man. That actually reminds me, just the last point, and again, Behind the Blogs, where we peel back the curtain. The first time I was in the lower bowl of the Sens arena, like in the background, like where the players and management, all the dressing rooms are, I got picked out to do the subway race. Do you know that one? Where I had to
There's
wear
a sandwich
a loaf of bread.
or
me and my buddy Max,
piece of a sandwich, and you have to create a sandwich all together, right?
You know what I went out there and I literally just laid on the blue line wearing a friggin' a half a loaf of bread, and my other buddy wearing the other half of bread had to run to the blue line and get the lettuce, then run back and put the lettuce on me, then go get the tomatoes, then go get the bacon, and then to finish he had to belly flop right on top of me. Absolutely wild.
That is degrading, and it reminds me of one of my all-time favorite hockey game moments that's kind of related to that. I was at a game at the Civic Center back in the day, and they used to have the hot dog gun, so they were launching hot dogs into the crowd. They shot one what looked like into the rafters, and it kind of got stuck up there and then fell down, or something fell down. What fell down was like a Subway sandwich, and a guy caught it and started eating it. But I was like, they're shooting hot dogs. Where did that thing come from? He ate a Subway sandwich from the rafters at the Civic Center, and I still worry about that guy to this day. Actually, I don't know if he made it, but
damn.
Yeah,
that's tough. I mean, hey, anything they can do to get the fans engaged and stuff, as long as, like mentioned, it's safe and no best sandwiches that are past their best before date are consumed. That's definitely a solid for me. If you had to invent an intermission event, what would it be, Chirp?
Ooh. I mean, I'm usually with Martian at the Molson fan deck, right? I don't care what they're doing. I just go grab a couple drinks. I don't really tune in much to the intermission segments. I've never been called on the ice like Ross has, so I'm not paying attention much at that point. But I think, I do kind of tune into the president's race when they're going. Like I think, that's,
when they're flying around.
Yeah, I always feel like that's going to end poorly, so I tune in for that. But no, as long as they can keep the beer lines moving, I think that's my intermission entertainment.
I love it. All right, final question, and we know that we're going to see you in that beer line on October 18th. Really looking forward to having a beer with you, and thank you for bringing up the important subject that's on everyone's mind as well. But we appreciate that we can address it. Know that it's something that needs to be fixed in terms of hockey culture, and then still keep a smile on our face knowing that we are working towards that. That being said, you have been around the Ottawa Senators, as you said, since the Civic Center days. Not dating you. However, what is your one favorite Ottawa Senators game? Whether it's home, away, if it's just because of something that happened to you at the game, or whether it was a big win, whatever it is. What's your number one all-time favorite Ottawa Senators game?
Yeah, it's a lot of my all-time favorite Senators moments are kind of linked to how I watched the game as opposed to kind of the magnitude of the moment. And there's two that I watched that kind of stick out, and obviously big moments too. The one where Daniel Alfredsson tied it late against the Penguins, and then Colin Greening scores in double overtime. I think I don't have the year in front of me, but that game
double
was
or
great.
Triple. That was 2013. That was after they beat the Habs in that epic.
There you
series.
go. Look, you didn't even look that up, folks. That's in his head.
Yeah, he's in the encyclopedia. It's wild.
Yeah. So the tying goal, and then the winner by Greening. But the real reason I remember it is because I was sitting in something called the Weiser's box at the time.
What's that?
So this used to be it's at the 100 level, and it served basically Weiser's throughout the game. And I had a friend who ran that box, and he had to leave early that night. So he put me in charge of the box, and he said, yeah, just sign the bill at the end of the night. So I watched that game from the Weiser's box and ran a pretty good tab, if I recall correctly. Yeah. And then the other one is the Pajot 4-goal game against the Rangers. So I was there with a buddy, with my wife, and with my daughter. So this was her first game, and
her first game?
That was her first game she ever went to.
Hold the shoot. Doesn't get any better than that.
Oh my God. I mean, that's what I told her. I was like, that's the best game I've ever been to, and that's your first. But she cried like crazy on the first couple goals, like the noise in the rink, and then by the OT winner, and she was still up. It started in the afternoon, and she was pretty young, but she made it to the end of the game, and I remember watching her clapping when Pajot scored the OT winner. So it's like she went through the whole process of being like crying and overwhelmed by it, and then seeing one of the biggest moments in franchise history. So those are two of my favorites.
So she got to go through the cycle of being a Sens fan all in a short term there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Final question for me, SensChirp. Since you're one of the OG bloggers, let's have a full wide range span here. Who is your favorite obscure Ottawa Senator of all time? I feel like we haven't brought this one around in a while,
Great
Ross,
question.
so I'm interested to hear SensChirp's answer here.
So, I mean, this is an easy one for me, and it's not going to make a lot of sense to anyone else, but I was a huge Vaclav Varada guy.
Okay.
And I don't exactly remember the origins of it, but I remember being so excited when they traded for him. I had a Vaclav Varada jersey
Maybe only
that I
one.
got. I know me and Vaclav had them. That I got for Christmas from my mom. Sad ending to that jersey is I ended up burning it in a really misguided sacrifice to the playoff gods before playoff round against the Penguins one year, thinking that would somehow appease the hockey gods and get them back on our side, and I think they got swept. So that backfired. But I was a big Vaclav Varada guy. Can't get it back though. That jersey's gone for good.
Vaclav Varada's only year in Ottawa, where he played more than 30 games, he averaged 9 minutes and 40 seconds per game.
You said obscure. It doesn't get much more obscure than that.
No, I wasn't obscure. It's the fact that you have this dude's jersey.
I no longer do.
Now the gods have it.
It's with the gods now.
That's awesome. Well, this is now with the gods. We will leave it into thin air.
There you go.
You're the man. We appreciate you very much enlightening us on how it went with boots on the ground, getting to pound a few Molsons with the Martian, and then obviously talking about things much bigger than hockey. We appreciate you. We know that you're a man of many words, but not many pixels. But we appreciate you joining us over the phone, and look forward to being able to cheers you and have a pint in person in just under a month. So thanks again, man.
Yeah, guys, it was great. Appreciate you having me on. And anytime you want me to call in from the Senate to a postcast, I'll do that again sometime soon.